My name is Margaret, I'm 68 years old, and I thought I was finally about to live the dream I had carried for decades. I had paid $33,000 for a Christmas vacation in Rome, a trip I believed would heal the cracks in my family and give us memories worth treasuring. I was standing at Newark Airport, clutching my passport, watching my son's family check in their luggage, when my daughter-in-law turned toward me with a smile that felt too polished. "We forgot your ticket. You should go home," she said, as if she were offering me a cup of coffee instead of slicing me out of my own family's holiday. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. My hands trembled, not because of age, but because disbelief surged through me like a storm. My son, David, stood beside her with his eyes fixed on the floor, refusing to meet mine. My grandchildren, Sophie and Ethan, glanced at me with confusion, their faces caught between loyalty and fear. I felt the cold air of the terminal press against my chest as if the building itself had turned its back on me. $33,000. Every confirmation email had my name on it, every tour, every reservation, and yet here I was, treated like baggage too heavy to carry. I wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, to remind them who had made this trip possible. But instead, I straightened my coat, forced my voice steady, and whispered, "I see." My heels echoed on the linoleum floor as I walked away, carrying nothing but my dignity and a storm of questions. At that moment, I promised myself something. They might think they had left me behind, but the truth was far more complicated. They had just unlocked a side of me they had long underestimated, and Rome would never be the same for them. 3 months before that humiliating morning at the airport, my kitchen smelled of cinnamon and apples. I had baked a pie, the way I used to when David was a boy, hoping the sweetness would soften the edges of a strained relationship. He and Vanessa sat at my table, their hands entwined as if rehearsing for a performance. "Mom," David began, with that careful tone children use when they're about to ask for something big, "we've been thinking it might be time to finally take a real family trip. Something memorable, something special for Christmas." Vanessa leaned forward, her smile wide and dazzling, her eyes trained on me like a spotlight. "Rome," she said. "Can you imagine it? The lights on the streets, Christmas Mass at St. Peter's, gelato by the fountains. It would be magical, and it would mean so much for the kids. Sophie and Ethan could see history come alive." I wanted to believe her. After my husband died, the holidays had become hollow echoes of what they used to be. I filled the emptiness with gifts, with money, with anything that might hold my family together. A trip to Rome sounded like a chance to stitch us closer, to remind them that love, not distance, defined us. David cleared his throat. "The cost is a little steep. Flights, hotel, tours, meals. Vanessa offered to handle the reservations if you're comfortable with that." The words barely finished before Vanessa pulled a sleek notebook from her bag. Inside were lists of tours, hotels near the Spanish Steps, even brochures she had printed. She slid them across the table as though she were presenting a business proposal. "If you put it on your card, I'll manage every detail," she assured me. "You won't have to worry about a thing. You'll just get to enjoy it." I hesitated, not because I couldn't afford it, but because I remembered all the other times I had opened my checkbook, when David needed help with college loans, when Vanessa had complications during Sophie's birth, when they bought their first house and fell short on the down payment. Each time I told myself it was love, not obligation, guiding me. $33,000, give or take, David admitted. He looked embarrassed, but he didn't stop Vanessa when she slid the estimate closer to me. My heart squeezed. $33,000 was a lot of money. But what was the point of saving if not to spend it on family? I thought of the laughter echoing down narrow Roman streets, of my grandchildren wide-eyed inside the Vatican, of photos that would finally show us as one happy unit. I signed the receipt with a steady hand. "All right," I said. "Let's make it happen." Vanessa's smile tightened, almost too quick, as if satisfaction had flashed across her face before she smoothed it into gratitude. "You won't regret this," she promised. In the weeks that followed, she busied herself with emails and phone calls, always brushing off my offers to help. "I've got it handled," she repeated so often it began to feel like a shield. When I asked about the hotel, she waved her hand. 5 stars, near the piazza. You'll love it." If I wondered about the flights, she laughed. "Direct, of course. Don't worry." But late one night, when I walked past the den, I heard her voice on the phone. She didn't know I was there. "This will teach her boundaries," she whispered sharply. "She can't keep buying her way into everything. Rome will set things straight." My heart stumbled. Boundaries, buying my way in. I stood frozen, the words piercing deeper than I expected. I had never seen my help as intrusion, only as love. But in that moment, I realized, to her, my generosity wasn't kindness. It was control. And she meant to cut me out. I didn't confront her. I simply walked back to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the photographs on my nightstand. David as a boy with chocolate on his chin, Sophie holding my hand on her first day of school, Ethan asleep against my shoulder at a baseball game. I whispered to those memories. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. Yet somewhere in my chest, a quiet voice told me I wasn't. The morning of the trip arrived with a brittle December chill. I packed carefully the night before, folding each sweater as if the neatness could calm the unease that had been gnawing at me since I overheard Vanessa's phone call. Still, a stubborn hope clung to me. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe I was letting suspicion poison what was meant to be a beautiful holiday. Newark Airport buzzed with holiday chaos, families dragging overstuffed suitcases, children whining for hot chocolate, announcements echoing over loudspeakers. I clutched my passport and ticket folder, though something inside whispered that one of those things didn't matter anymore. David wheeled their luggage toward the counter while Vanessa glided beside him, her red scarf draped like she was already posing for photographs in Rome. Sophie and Ethan trailed behind, their chatter about pizza and gelato mixing with the hum of travelers. For a brief moment, watching them, I felt a flicker of joy. This was why I had paid. This was the family I loved, the family I wanted to hold together. At the check-in desk, Vanessa handed over a neat stack of passports. I waited, expecting her to turn and take mine. She didn't. The clerk tapped on her keyboard, printed boarding passes, and passed them back. 4 tickets. 4, not 5. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What about mine?" Vanessa turned with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Margaret, I'm so sorry. We forgot your ticket. You should go home." Forgot. The word struck me like a slap. $33,000. And somehow I was the one forgotten. David shifted his weight, staring at the floor tiles. He didn't defend me, didn't argue, didn't even look me in the eye. My son, the boy I had nursed through fevers, cheered for at baseball games, and bailed out of financial holes, stood mute while his wife erased me from the family portrait. Sophie's eyes flicked between us, confusion written across her face. "Grandma," she whispered, but Vanessa's hand landed firmly on her shoulder, guiding her toward the gate. A fire burned in my chest, anger and humiliation tangled together, begging to explode. I imagined shouting, demanding justice, forcing every traveler in earshot to hear the truth. But another voice, quieter and older, spoke from within me. If I raged here, I would become exactly what Vanessa wanted, a bitter old woman clinging and desperate. So I inhaled, lifted my chin, and straightened my coat. "I see," I said, my voice calm but cold. My heels struck the linoleum as I turned away, each step echoing like a gavel delivering judgment. As I walked toward the exit, tears stung but did not fall. The automatic doors opened, and the winter air hit my face, sharp and biting. It felt almost cleansing. They believed they had left me behind, abandoned and powerless. But they had overlooked one crucial fact. Every reservation, every confirmation, every dollar spent was under my name. In that moment, humiliation hardened into resolve. I would not scream. I would not beg. I would act. They thought they had won, but the truth was, the game had only just begun. The taxi ride home from Newark was silent except for the driver's radio humming faint Christmas tunes. I sat stiffly in the back seat, staring at the skyline as it blurred past. My suitcase lay beside me like an accusation, a reminder that I was supposed to be flying across the Atlantic, not crawling back to an empty house. But as the city lights flickered, an idea began to spark. I wasn't powerless. Not this time. When I walked into my kitchen, the house felt colder than it had in years. I set down my bag, pulled out my laptop, and opened the folder where every confirmation email had been carefully saved. There they were: flight numbers, hotel bookings, museum tours, restaurant reservations, all under my name, paid with my card. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, my reflection faint in the glow. My heart pounded, my palms damp. I thought about Sophie's confused face at the airport, about David's silence, about Vanessa's smile. Shame still burned, but underneath it, something stronger grew: clarity. They had chosen to treat me as a burden. Fine. I would show them what life looked like without my support. I dialed the airline first. The hold music jingled, cheerful and tinny, grating against my mood. When a representative finally answered, I gave her my booking number. "Yes, I'd like to cancel all tickets under this reservation. Yes, all of them." My voice shook only once, but I steadied it with each word. Click. Refund processed. Next, the hotel in Rome. "Reservation under Margaret Lawson," I said firmly. "Please cancel." An email confirmation of the cancellation to me. One by one, I moved down the list: private walking tour of the Vatican, cooking class in Trastevere, Christmas Eve dinner overlooking the Colosseum. Each time I repeated the same words, the same steady tone. With every cancellation, I felt the weight lift from my chest, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't spite, it was justice. Still, I knew they would need to discover the truth in a way that left no room for denial. So I drafted an email. The subject line was simple: "Merry Christmas from home." I wrote, "Since I was forgotten at the airport, I thought it only fair to remind you that every detail of this trip was booked under my name and my card. As of today, those details no longer exist. You may still go to Rome, but you'll find the city less accommodating than you expected. Consider this my way of teaching boundaries." I attached the cancellation confirmations, every one of them, like pieces of evidence in a trial. Then I scheduled the email to send in 12 hours, just long enough for them to land in Italy before realizing their safety net was gone. When I clicked schedule, I exhaled for the first time all day. The house remained silent, but the silence no longer mocked me. It felt purposeful, like a cloak of strength settling around my shoulders. I poured myself a glass of red wine, sat at the kitchen table, and whispered into the stillness, You underestimated me, Vanessa. You thought age meant weakness, but you forgot. I've survived more storms than you can imagine. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. I pulled the blanket around me and leaned back. Tomorrow, they would arrive in Rome expecting luxury. Tomorrow, they would discover what it meant to erase me. And tomorrow, I would finally stop apologizing for being strong. By the time their plane touched down in Rome, my scheduled email had already flown ahead of them. I pictured them stepping off the jet bridge, bleary-eyed but excited, clutching visions of grandeur. Vanessa would stride toward the hotel counter, expecting champagne flutes and bellhops. Instead, she would hear the words, "Reservation canceled." The first voicemail came just after midnight, my phone vibrating on the nightstand. David's voice was tight, clipped. "Mom, there's been some mistake. The hotel says they don't have our rooms. Did you cancel something? Call me back. I didn't." 2 hours later, another message. Vanessa's voice, brittle with fury. "This isn't funny. Margaret, we're standing here with our luggage and no place to go. Fix it. Now." I turned the phone face down and let her anger dissolve into the silence of my bedroom. By morning, Sophie left a timid message. "Grandma, we're in some little inn. It smells weird, and Dad says it's just for one night. I miss you." Her voice cracked at the end, and for a moment my resolve wavered. But I reminded myself, this wasn't about punishing the children. It was about teaching their parents that love cannot be bought and discarded. Later that afternoon, the tone shifted. David's words stumbled, heavy with desperation. "Mom, we tried to book new flights, but the prices have tripled. We don't have that kind of money. Please, just help us fix this. The kids are exhausted." Still, I stayed silent. Then came the call I couldn't ignore. It was Sophie again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Grandma, the police came. They said we owe money for the room because Mom didn't pay. Dad's arguing, but they might take us. I'm scared." My chest tightened, rage and sorrow colliding. Vanessa had dragged my grandchildren into debt, into shame on foreign soil. I could almost see her standing there, arguing with the clerk, blaming anyone but herself. I dialed the hotel directly, gave them my card number, and paid the minimum balance to release the children. "Only for the children," I told the clerk firmly, "not for the adults." When I hung up, my hands shook, not from regret but from the weight of choice. I hadn't abandoned Sophie and Ethan. I had drawn a line, one their parents could no longer cross. Hours later, another voicemail arrived, Vanessa again, her voice shrill. "You'll regret this. You've embarrassed us, humiliated us. We'll never forgive you." I pressed delete without listening further. For the first time in years, I felt free. They returned from Rome 5 days later, worn down and brittle. I could see it in their posture when David knocked on my door, his shoulders hunched as though the weight of the trip still clung to him. Behind him, Vanessa stood rigid, her lips pressed into a thin line. I stepped aside to let them in, though my chest tightened at the thought of their betrayal. Sophie and Ethan weren't with them. They had gone to stay with friends for the night. Perhaps that was mercy, sparing them the sight of what was about to unfold. David sank into a chair at the kitchen table, the same table where months earlier he had pitched Rome like a miracle. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse. "Mom," he began. "I'm sorry. I should have stopped it. I should have." He rubbed his face with his hands, unable to finish. Vanessa crossed her arms. "You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what people thought when we were left scrambling in a foreign country? You made us look pathetic." Her words rang with fury, but I noticed the tremor in her hands. She wasn't unshaken. She was just desperate to cover the cracks. I poured myself a cup of tea, the steam curling between us. I didn't humiliate you, Vanessa. You did that yourself when you treated me like luggage too heavy to carry. I paid for that trip. I trusted you, and you left me at the airport as though I meant nothing. David lifted his head, shame written across his face. She said it would be better. Mom, that you... He stopped, swallowing hard. I went along with it, and that was wrong. I see that now. For a moment, silence thickened the room. Then I placed a folder on the table and slid it across. Inside were copies of new documents, my updated will, the paperwork for a college fund set up exclusively for Sophie and Ethan. I've made some decisions, I said evenly. From now on, my money will not prop up your lives. I will not pay for houses, for holidays, for emergencies that stem from your carelessness. My estate will go to charity and to my grandchildren's education. You, David, and you, Vanessa, are no longer written into my future. Vanessa's mouth fell open. You can't just... I can, I interrupted, my voice steady. And I have. You forgot me once. I won't let you forget me again in the same way. I will be remembered, not as a fool, but as a woman who finally drew a line. David's eyes filled, not with anger, but with something closer to relief, as though my words released him from years of silent dependence. I'll find a way to fix things, he whispered. For the kids, if not for us. Vanessa stormed out, her heels clattering against the floor. David lingered a moment longer, then followed, leaving the folder untouched on the table. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup of tea, the steam rising like a benediction. For the first time in years, I felt steady, anchored not by what I gave away, but by what I had finally chosen to keep, my dignity, my boundaries, my voice. A week later, Sophie and Ethan came to visit me after school. They carried their backpacks and the weariness of children who had seen too much, too young. I greeted them with hot cocoa, the kind piled high with whipped cream, the way they liked when they were little. Grandma, Sophie said softly, was it true? Did you cancel everything? I held her gaze. Yes, I did. But not to hurt you. I wanted your parents to understand that respect matters more than money, and sometimes the only way to teach that is to step back. Ethan stirred his cocoa with a spoon, his eyes fixed on the swirling cream. It was scary. The hotel guy was yelling, and Dad looked so small, but you paid so we could leave. You saved us. My throat tightened. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. I will always protect you. That will never change. After a pause, I pulled out a new binder, the one with the college fund paperwork inside. I set this up for you both, I explained. Every dollar is for your education, your future. No one can touch it except you when the time comes. I want you to know that even if grown-ups make mistakes, you're never forgotten. Sophie's eyes shimmered. She leaned across and hugged me fiercely. Thank you, Grandma. We'll make you proud. In that moment, the bitterness of Newark and Rome dissolved, replaced by something purer. I had not lost my family. I had reshaped it. My relationship with my son might remain distant. My bond with Vanessa likely beyond repair. But with Sophie and Ethan, there was still a bridge worth crossing, and I had no intention of letting it collapse. That night, after they left, I sat by the window watching the first snow fall. The flakes drifted slowly, settling over the quiet street, covering the world in a kind of peace. I thought of the years I had spent giving without limits, of the pain of being cast aside, of the strength it took to say enough. Family isn't measured in dollars or grand vacations. It's measured in respect, in the simple act of showing up, of valuing one another's place at the table. I had been forgotten once, but in the end, I had remembered myself. And as the snow blanketed the night, I whispered a promise to the silence. I am not a burden. I am not invisible. I am the keeper of my own worth, and I will never let anyone erase me again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.